Most important business decision I've ever made. You say, I'm not good on camera, but I am good with people. It is a great job. She wanted to burn the company down and the evidence with it. So think about that. It's one of those things that's just not spoken about.
Welcome back everyone to Roofing Insights. I'm your host Dmitry Lipinski. Today I have a very special guest. I'm sitting here with Marcus Sheridan. Marcus, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, brother. Happy to be here today.
So we're going to ask Marcus a few questions about his business history, what he have accomplished, how did he get to become a speaker, author, what he does today. So my first question to you, Marcus, who is Marcus Sheridan today? Introduce yourself in your own words. What's your favorite title?
Well, my favorite title is pool guy, right? Because I still own a swimming pool company, and in Virginia. And of course, I'm going to tell that story today. But I speak full time around the world on digital sales and marketing and leadership, and it is a great job, right? Because I get to meet really amazing people, businesses, people that are hungry, right? That want to change their life. And so that's a lot of fun. And I also own an agency. We have about 75 employees there, and we help companies do digital.
What's bigger, Marcus pool guy or Marcus agency marketing side?
In terms of revenue, the swimming pool company's pretty, it's probably, 18 million or something like that. And then, we've got the agency is about 9. And then the speaking company is its own entity.
But out of all of them, you still consider yourself as a pool guy?
I never, people sometimes say to me, do you get tired of being labeled a pool guy? No, I think it's awesome.
That's your biggest accomplishment?
Well, so the thing about it is, it's the thing that, and certainly, everybody's going to understand this later today, but the story of my swimming pool company has been taught all over the world. It's being taught in business schools right now, all over North America. Different professors in Europe have contacted me saying, hey, we're teaching the principles of what you did with river pools to our business school this year.
Wow.
And so even though that might not be a title to some people like, hey, it's a pool guy, I think it's awesome. It's just like I think somebody that says, I'm a roofer. I think it's awesome because it really isn't so much the occupation as to in terms of your ability to influence goes way beyond what your title is. One thing that's funny to me too, Dmitry, is when I just got out of college and I started this swimming pool company with a couple buddies, a family member came up to me and she said, so I heard you're going to be a pool guy. And I said, yeah. She said, what a waste of talent. That's what she said. And I'll never forget that because it now, of course, now that over 100,000 people have read the book and now it's being taught to so many and I get the emails every single day, it's pretty funny. And I think the thing that makes it resonate is because it's so utterly simple and it's a company that anybody can put their arms around. If we're some SaaS company that's online, it's like, you can't appreciate that as well. But everybody can understand, okay, swimming pool company, I get this, makes sense.
Awesome. Well, you're obviously very successful, but do you have something that you would consider a weakness in business?
Yeah, that's why I always have business partners.
What's your weakness?
So I would say one of my weaknesses is I'm not naturally great with accounting, right? And I think, I went through an embezzlement when I had 5 years in business, and that's because I was aloof on the books. And it turns out that, and what's funny is once someone embezzles from you, you realize that you have a bunch of friends that were also embezzled from. But it's one of those things that's just not spoken about in most industries. And it's really prolific in the blue-collar space because what happens is we tend to not be necessarily great with accounting stuff. We start businesses, we lean on somebody to do the books for us, and then what happens is they take advantage of us, right?
Somebody stole from you?
Right, that's right. And so this person ended up having, we actually gave her check writing authority, right? Which I didn't realize was a bad thing. And So she had the authority to write checks, and she would go to the bank every Friday to pay our taxes. Turns out she wasn't paying our taxes for a year.
Very common.
Yeah, very common, right? And so I had a lien on my company for 3 years by the IRS.
How much was the lien for?
It was for about $300,000. And you know what's funny about this, I don't know, it's funny now, right? But the IRS has no mercy, zero compassion. And if you get in a tax situation, they don't care how it happened. Because ultimately they say this was your ship and you're responsible for it. And so it wasn't until 2008 that we recovered from those debts.
And then the economy collapsed.
And then the economy collapsed, right? So it was really convenient. When all the swimming pool companies were doing super well and getting fat and happy, we were paying off this debt from the embezzlement. And I thought.
What happened to that person? Jail time?
She went to jail. Yeah, which is really sad. I mean, she had two children, right? She went to jail, but she wanted to burn the company down and the evidence with it, so that she could essentially, walk away. And so it turned out she was a bad person, but it happened because we were aloof and we were too trusting. And that's one of the good and bad things I think about being a business owner, and everybody in here is probably experiences. It jades you, it leathers you up, because you want to trust people, and whether it's employees or whether it's customers, and you can do everything right, and you can still get burned. And that's a tough thing to swallow sometimes.
I can relate. We actually have people stealing checks from us. My wife always tells me, Dmitry, you're too nice. In my office, you have checks all over the place. And my answer to it always been this. If I can't trust my employees with a checkbook, if you want to hide it in a safe and you want to build processes, people who wants to steal, they will find a way to steal. And in most creative ways. People don't steal cash because it's leaning on the table or because check was there. They will find a way. I have one girl writing herself a check. It was $500. She didn't tell me about it. But the funny part was she worked for me for 9 months. And she was getting paid well. She got in a bad relationship, and she started 9 months into it. She started asking for advances. I'm like, what's going on here? So she would get paid on Friday. Next week, I would give her advance, and then with the same time, so I'm paying her advances. She's not repaying me, and she started writing checks to herself. And I'm like, why? And I let her go. But people who wants to do it, they will do it. They'll find a way.
Well, they'll find a way, but it's also your job as a business owner to have a system to where you're not aloof, that you're paying attention, and that if it does happen, at least you catch it. In our case, it took us a year. That's on us at that point.
I catch it right away within a couple of days.
That's right.
But at the same time, if it happens, you can't really stop. You have to react later. But if you don't trust people, I feel like it's a way bigger problem. How do you trust your accountant now? Who does your accounting now?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, I feel like we've got a great accountant, but we look at the numbers all the time. We have a meeting weekly, right? And she's not hiding anything from me, and she wants to show us too. In hindsight, I realized that the bookkeeper that embezzled that money from us, she liked that we were ignorant. And she didn't want, it's almost like those really bad SEO companies that everybody in here has probably dealt with before, that does your SEO for you, but they don't want you to have any idea what the secret sauce is. And so because of that, you become more dependent on them. You're living in the dark, it's frustrating, and this is why so many companies feel jaded by these online pay-per-click or whatever types of companies. It's the same thing, right? So I believe whenever you hire somebody to do something you cannot do, if they're not willing to show you how to also do that, well, then it's probably not a good relationship.
I agree 100%. Speaking of SEO, what would it take, brand new company, let's say I start a roofing business, pool business, start to finish, how long will it take me realistically with a conservative marketing budget to become a leader and maybe showing up on the first page of Google if I've never even have a brand name before? Is this such a thing as we're going to get you on the first page of Google within first year? Can anybody start dominating their market in the first year?
Well, I think it depends on how you define get you on the first page of Google, right? So today, we're actually going to talk some about that, but it's going to be a different view of it. So are you going to get on the first page of Google for roofing companies? Probably not. Outrageously competitive. But could you get on the first page of Google for best roofing companies, Richmond, Virginia, and then choose a specific type of roof that you're looking for, right? Like cedar plank or something like that. Or something like that, okay? Could you be number one for that? Absolutely, you could. And so specificity is the key for SEO today. And we're not going to say the words SEO because I want everybody thinking beyond just the scope of SEO. It's a byproduct of being willing to talk about the things that our buyers want to know about. So we're going to have a fun conversation on that today. So I think it is possible to a certain degree. And also, I mean, for the most part, the beauty of this industry is a lot like the swimming pool industry. Roofers stink online. Pool guys stink online. They're not good. And so if you're willing just to do a little bit more than your competition, well then wonderful. The problem is too often we say, well, I'm just not technical, or it's not my thing. Well, the problem is you got into business. So the moment you got into business and you started asking people for their money, you lost the right to say, well, technology is just not my thing. I mean, I was the same way. I'm not one of these millennials that just got it. You know, I didn't feel, like so much of it to me is like, I look at some of the content, some of the videos that I did early on, man, and you're like, dude, you were not good. You just weren't very good. And I was not good, but it was a win because I did it. I'm sure same thing for you, right? Some of the content you produced early on, some of the stuff you were doing.
Are you telling me I'm not good? What? Is that what you said? Have you watched some stuff? I'll take it.
We all have our journey, right? We all have our journey.
By the way, when you start creating content, it's the same rules applies as speaking. The more you do, the better you become. The more you on the stage speak to people, the better you become. The more you record yourself, the better you become. It's natural thing. It's amazing how, if you guys follow me for the last couple of years, you see the difference between Dmitry 2 years ago, a year ago, and now. And it's not like we are going to schools, we do trainings, we do see other stuff, but the more you do, just like, working out at the gym, the more you do, the better you become.
Well, and the scary thing is when we just label ourselves and we say, I just can't do that, sure. Right? Which, generally speaking, is not actually true. We haven't broke through yet, right? I mean, like video, and I wish I had time today to talk a lot about video. I don't. I mean, we could have so much fun with video. And maybe that'll be like next year or something like that, because there's a bunch on that. I have people come to me all the time and say, I'm just not good on camera. I'm like, really? That's interesting. Would you consider yourself good with people? They're like, oh yeah, I'm good with people. So think about that, right? You say, I'm not good on camera, but I am good with people. And the issue is you don't see the camera as a customer, as a prospect, as a friend, right? When I'm talking to the camera, I literally do not see it any differently than I would if I was sitting with you right now or talking with the audience. To me, it's all the same thing. And anytime I have a conversation, it's like I'm talking to a singular person. Sometimes it's a lens. But once we get past that, it's amazing how good we can be. I mean, I don't believe, if anybody in here is doing in-home sales, says they can't do video well, they're telling themselves a false story.
Love it. How much small construction business should be spending on marketing percentage-wise with their revenue? Do you have a number? Is it a 5%? Is it 10%? Do you have a conservative number you would recommend? Let's say I go in business today and I plan to do $1 million in sales, but I still have to budget how much I have to spend on marketing. What would your comfortable number be?
Oh man, I think that's a really tough one. I look at it more based on time, right? So for me personally, when the economy crashed, and again, I'll tell a little bit of that story today, but I didn't have the ability to pay someone to do marketing for me. So instead, what did I do? I went to my wife and I said, I know generally we go to bed sometime around 10:30 at night. but I need to start doing some stuff online to save my company because we're screwed. And so I can't go to bed at the same time as you anymore. And I went from 8 to 6 or 5.5 hours of sleep a night for 2 straight years. Now, I don't feel sorry for myself. I got in business, right? Otherwise, I could work for somebody else and not have that problem. So because I had committed to this thing, went from this 8 to 6, 5.5 hours of sleep, really learned digital, really started producing content, completely changed our business, right? And the rest is history. That's what we'll talk about today. So to me, I was spending 2 hours a day doing something I'd never done. So I still believe that in most cases, you're going to have to spend 10 hours a week on digital stuff if you want to be very, very successful in growing your business, your brand, your bottom line. 10 hours a week.
I agree.
At least.
Love it. Have you ever done door knocking?
Have I ever done door knocking? Well, we haven't knocked doors. We've done some of the traditional like door hanger stuff. You know what I'm saying? We've done some of that, but we've never done door knocking. But I'm a fan of it. I was a missionary for 2 years in Chile. I knocked on doors for 2 years. I've had so many doors slammed in my face. I've been cussed out. I've been spat upon. I've had rocks thrown at me. So, but it's amazing how you can win somebody over at the door if you really understand great principles of communication. Foremost is the smile, right? Same thing with camera. You start always with the smile because that sets the tone for everything else. Sets the tone. And so I'm a fan of it. Why? Because you're engaged in a worthy cause and you're not sitting there feeling sorry for yourself saying, where's my next lead coming from? You're actually doing something, which I think is good.
What's your biggest business accomplishment in the business world?
I mean, there's some vanity things that I don't like. I'm not really into vanity because it's hard for me to answer that question because anything I say sounds probably like a brag. So I'm going to give you a personal and professional.
It's okay.
I would feel better about personal and professional. Personal is my marriage with my wife of 20-ish years is better today than it's ever been. I'm more engaged with my 4 children today than I've ever been because I have 4 kids. Yeah, 18, 16, 13, and 10. 3 girls, 1 boy, and 42. Right, so I started game early because I was like, why wait? That's how I feel about everything. Why wait on business? Why wait on family? Why wait? Let's do this, right? So that's been my biggest personal. Professional would probably be, I was rated one of the top 20 speakers in the world by Forbes. My book, They Ask You Answer, was rated by Mashable the #1 marketing book in 2017. That was versus thousands of other books. Those are probably 2 like vanity metrics that were good.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Give one advice to somebody who's just starting in the construction business.
Just starting in the construction business. I would say, and this is really to any business, but construction too. And keep in mind, as I say this, it's easier for me to say this than it's to be done. I mean, because I recognize you're all in the position where you need cash flow, right? But the phrase that I'm sure you've heard before, and I found more and more and more that it's true, is the riches are in the niches, right? And so we didn't become outrageously successful as a swimming pool company until I did 2 things. So it started when I read Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And Good to Great talks about this thing called a hedgehog concept. Hedgehog concept comes from the animal hedgehog, which doesn't do really anything very well, but it does one thing extremely well, which is when it gets attacked, it rolls up into a spiky ball, and so therefore it protects itself extremely well. That's the one thing it does well for its survival. And so the concept behind Good to Great, which I would recommend to everybody in this room, just listen to it on audio about 10 times, and that is, you find that thing that you feel like you can be the best at. Instead of being a jack of all trades and a master of none, you're dramatically better off being a master of one. And so we said, because there was one time when I had 2 retail stores. I was selling hot tubs, I was selling above ground pools, I was selling tanning beds, I was selling pool tables, billiards, I was all that stuff, right? And I realized that wasn't going to take us to the promised land. And so we said, what can we be the best at? Fiberglass pools. So essentially in our case, we got rid of all the retail, got rid of the 2 stores, got out of my leases early, and I just leaned into fiberglass swimming pools. Most important business decision I've ever made, all right? Second most important business decision I've ever made was I said, we're going to become the Wikipedia of swimming pools. And that's what happened. We became the Wikipedia of pools.
Awesome. That's awesome, man. The last question I have for you, they say that sales fix everything. Would you agree with that? In business.
I don't think that. I think revenue and profit fixes everything. So sales can be a mask for a lot of bad things that are happening. Also, I see, and you've seen this before, there's a lot of companies, there's probably companies in this room that are leading the room in sales, but they have no money in the bank, which is really frustrating, right? Because we have a problem with our margins. And so I would say that profit margin is everything. Now, that, yes, has to come from sales. But the way that sales has evolved, it's changing so much anyway. I mean, I think we're going towards a time where many of us are going to be able to reach full-fledged agreements with homeowners without setting foot first on their property, which sounds unrealistic. But you know, I had, last year, we did about 140 in-ground swimming pools. And we sold roughly, I think it was 19 of them. We got a deposit of $5,000 before we set foot in the home. And so, if you would, and I tell that to swimming pool companies, and they're like, I don't believe you, you're lying. Well, it's fine, you don't have to believe me, but that's reality. And this is how today's buyers change. So the question is, what can we do to make somebody feel so much trust towards us that they literally give us money on the first phone call before we've set foot in the home? And I believe that's possible. And I'm going to talk about that today because it's real.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to hear you speak. Give it up for Marcus Sheridan. Thanks, man.